Deepwatch helps secure the digital economy by protecting and defending enterprise networks everywhere, every day. Deepwatch leverages its highly automated cloud-based SOC platform backed by a world-class team of experts who monitor, detect, and respond to threats on customers' digital assets 24/7, 365. Many of the world's leading brands rely on Deepwatch's managed detection and response. Visit securityweekly.com/Deepwatch to learn more. Can your incident response technology collect from off-network endpoints? Xtero FTK Enterprise can. Endpoints are no longer located in a physical office, and organizations need a comprehensive investigation tool that enables holistic data collection and review. With FTK Enterprise, you can also scan for IOCs and MISP indicators. You can scan with Yara rules, and you can use integrations to trigger automatic endpoint collections. Visit securityweekly.com/Xtero for access to their white paper, Incident Response for a Remote World. Customers want fast and frictionless digital experiences, yet also expect protection against breaches, privacy violations, and fraud. Drive engagement by optimizing security and convenience to attract and retain customers. Use the PingOne cloud platform to build, test, and optimize digital experiences. The no-code orchestration engine weaves together authentication, user management, and MFA, all of which can enhance security, drive engagement, and boost revenues. Visit securityweekly.com/ping identity to learn more.
Welcome back to RSA Conference 2022. It's day 3. We're still recording live at the Marriott Marquis. I am your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me for this segment is Chris Cleveland, CEO at Pixelm. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Matt. Great to be here. Great to be back at RSA.
Yeah, I was thinking that you and I had met before somewhere in person, and then I realized it was your co-founder.
That's right. That's right.
And I was like, that's how long it's been since we've been at a physical conference.
Yeah, like 2019 or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So some new announcements this week around mobile. We're going to get into the technology a little bit. Matt Mosley was on earlier, talked more about the market challenges. Just give us a quick summary of Pixelm's capabilities, and then let's dig into kind of how it works and also the new mobile capabilities that you just released.
Sure. So Pixelm is all about detecting and stopping phishing attacks as they're actually clicked and opened in the browser using real-time computer vision technology. So, like Matt was saying, a lot of phishing activity, even though if I'm a CISO, I tend to associate phishing with email or inbox security.
Right.
But the truth is that a lot of the phishing activity is coming in through Discord, it's coming in through Facebook, it's coming in through LinkedIn. So by being able to stop attacks at point of click in the browser, it really doesn't matter where they come from, you're still stopping it. Right. And like you mentioned, we recently launched PIXM Mobile. So this is really about being able to stop phishing attacks on any device and any application, which is really where the modern work environment is.
Exactly right. I mean, I use my phone for everything. And so I'm going to get a text message that has a link in it to say, hey, to check the status of your delivery, click this link, right? We're seeing more of those types of attacks. And that's going to render a browser on my mobile device that is now a vector for a scam, right? And so, the mobile use case obviously is a huge use case because we're seeing more and more mobile usage, especially in a remote hybrid workforce.
Yeah, we're really excited to be launching our first mobile product on iOS and for iPhones and iPads. I mean, going back to 2016, the way the DNC was initially breached was actually through Gmail on somebody's iPad. So from the very beginning, there was a lot of motivation to be able to protect that vector.
Yeah, exactly. So how does it work? There's a free plugin. There's a plugin. It goes into the browser. And then you said it's computer vision technology. What was the term you used?
Computer vision, exactly. So computer vision is a fancy word for software that can see. So humans and animals, we have this very well developed hardware in our brains. We can basically see light in the real world. It hits our retinas and we can interpret objects in the world. So you see software like this, that's in Tesla vehicles, that's being used to identify lanes, pedestrians, and other cars. We're putting that capability into the browser and now onto your phone. So that if you open up a page and it looks like Facebook or it looks like Coinbase, but it's not from an authorized domain, we can give that user real-time feedback before they make a bad decision.
Right, and I think that's the interesting part of the technology is even if I click the link, right? Now let's say my spam filters out most of those. Some are going to get through.
Oh yeah.
I click the link. The next point is to actually look at the page you're going to see if it's a legitimate page. And if it's not, flag the user right there that, hey, wait, this looks malicious. Therefore, I don't put my credentials in there and now have the account takeover happen, right?
Exactly. We're right there at that last line of defense when the page, a login page, actually loads into the browser. So we're really right there as the payload is delivered to the end user, no matter where that link is clicked from. So, of course, we'll protect phishing attacks that are coming in through all these different channels. But, for a lot of our customers, what really resonates with them is like, hey, I'm already protected in my inbox, but I'm not protected from all of these other channels where I'm being targeted. But once you deploy Pixelm, you'll also maybe find that your inbox also wasn't as secure as you thought it was well, because it's very easy to conceal the phishing payload. Like if you're a cyber analyst and you have a phishing link, you open up that link in your own browser, you're actually going to see a pet food website, or you're going to get redirected to a 404. But what the end user sees is something totally different. So there's a lot of proxy-aware technology now that's out there that hackers are using again and again.
Right.
And only if you're really right there in the browser, observing the same payload that the end user sees, are you able to really stop it effectively.
Exactly. So deployment is a plugin.
Mm-hmm.
I actually run the free plugin because you guys have a free plugin in the browser, and I've been running it on my Mac since you guys came out a couple of years ago. So I run it on my machine. But what's the corporate use case now? So I have the plugin. All that data's got to go somewhere. So talk me through, like, what does the back end look like? How do people visualize and see what's going on across their employee base from all these different browser plugins that have been installed?
Yeah, we have the free plugin that everybody's welcome to install on their devices and install on their parents' devices. It's always a good idea. For enterprise customers, what we enable is rapid deployment to an unlimited number of devices and centralized visibility into threat data. So I can see all of the links, the phishing links that are getting clicked within my organization. I can see which users are clicking on them. I also have information about the kinds of campaigns that are targeting my users. So I'm going to be able to see, is it Microsoft phishing attacks that are targeting my people? Is my inbox security weak? Are these phishing attacks coming in through Facebook? So I can really organize and search my data based on user, based on types of attack. The other thing I'll just mention here is the telemetry capture that we get. Going back to that point I made about the payload, you get to see the actual HTML and indeed the screenshots that are loaded into the browser.
Oh, interesting.
So you're able to see actually, whether it's Coinbase, whether it's whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn. We see, a lot of business collaborations happening on WhatsApp. We've seen WhatsApp phishing attacks we stopped. You get to see that kind of browser layer telemetry in the back end, which is really helpful for a lot of our customers.
So what do I do? So I see the data coming in, right? You're creating your own threat intelligence data at the end of the day, right? Because you're actually observing these attacks, the clicks, you're capturing the data. How would an organization then leverage that threat intelligence data? Are they going back then to their web and their email products and updating rules, et cetera? Like, do you see that kind of bi-directional integration with the other tools in the environment?
Absolutely. Whether it's URLs, whether it's IP addresses, sometimes it might be domains that you want to add to your firewalls. You're always empowered to do those kinds of things. Of course, with a product like this, we're really going back to that paradigm of you can actually prevent and stop breaches from happening in the first place, which I know has kind of become an outdated way of thinking about it. But with these new AI capabilities, we're really revisiting that paradigm. So when you actually see something in the threat feed, you have that awareness, you have the kind of the users that are at risk in the campaigns. But the good news is that the credentials were not entered. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's always that nice fact of being one step ahead of the adversary there.
Yeah, because this has been a challenge for a lot of organizations, especially in a remote workforce environment, is when your employees are outside of your environment, right? Outside of your firewalls, outside of your email protection products, outside of your web gateways, et cetera, how do you protect them from all these ransomware attacks, right? Because the first step is typically a phishing campaign, take over an account so that they can install something malicious, and then it goes from there, right? It's really difficult. But this allows you to do it at scale regardless of where the user is. And I think that's the interesting piece is by doing this and being proactive about it, it prevents the next steps in the kill chain, right? Which is where things get exploited and then spread from there.
That's right. I mean, the browser and the device tends to travel with the users, and we make our extensions, our web extensions, very easy to install on as many devices as you want. So, our pricing is actually based off per user, not per device. So on the one hand, you can deploy our enterprise product to an unlimited number of devices using a centralized device management system, but you can also tell your employees, hey, do you enjoy working from home? You want to keep working from home?
Yeah.
Do you like working on personal devices as well outside of our typical environment? We make it really easy to integrate those extra devices in as well so that you get that protection on any device and on any application.
That's great because I use my Teams app on my phone all the time when I'm on the road, like this week, because I don't want to flip open my MacBook, and it keeps rebooting anyways because of a Bridge OS issue between Mac OS on the task. So I don't even know if that machine will boot up. So I use my phone a ton.
Yep.
What if somebody sent me, a Teams link that happened to be malicious? I would never catch it on my mobile device unless I was running something like this. And that's the employee world right now.
That's right. And I think the new attack landscape is already taking advantage of the new work environment.
Right.
They were doing it even before the pandemic, to be honest.
Yeah, but they accelerated it.
But it's been vastly accelerated. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm curious about some of the ransomware use cases, right? Because we've seen a lot of news around these different ransomware attacks. As you look at the data you're collecting, because you're collecting across, I imagine, all these browsers, are there specific trends in these data sets that people should be cognizant of as they're out thinking about solutions like this? Like, what are those big kind of 3 or 4 areas of real concern based on the data you're seeing by collecting this for your customers?
Yeah, so over half of the phishing attacks that we're stopping are actually coming in totally outside of corporate email. So that's going to be Facebook primarily. It's also going to be LinkedIn. A huge amount of business communication is now done on WhatsApp and on Slack.
Yeah.
So the challenge there is that I really trust the people that appear to be sending me messages on these platforms.
Right.
So that means that if somebody I trust has their account popped on Slack or WhatsApp that I'm communicating with on a daily basis, if they want to deliver me that ransomware payload, it's going to be extremely easy to do so.
Interesting.
So I think that's definitely something to be wary of. The other trend that we've really seen is that folks are just working on personal devices a lot. So about 25% of the phishing attacks that we stop on our free browser extension that people are using for quote-unquote personal use are actually spear phishing targeting their work email. So we've stopped phishing attacks at point-of-click on personal devices that are targeting industries in power grid, in pharmaceuticals, and aerospace, all throughout the pandemic, in fact. So that was also a very common trend that you're seeing people doing a lot of work on their personal devices. So making sure that people are secure. Again, any device, any application, that's really our vision.
Right. Are there parts of the world that are creating more of this type of traffic than others?
Well, I mean,
do you know?
it's really hard to say. I think we're trying to hire more threat analysts right now because we have more threat data than we can currently deal with.
Oh, interesting.
We do have anecdotal cases of, for example, a Facebook phishing attack that was hosted on a Russian server. It was clicked by 7 users over a 5-day period, and that entire time, 90 out of 90 virus total vendors marked it as clean. So there's something about the combination of using this multi-channel targeting and also, being able to really conceal your actual, you're often breaching a legitimate page to host your phishing attack, and it's very, very difficult to detect that payload. So we did notice that hosted on a Russian server. Who knows if it's actually the Russians that are doing it, of course, but of course now it's a very hot topic.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very hot topic.
Yeah.
We just finished our email survey. Bill mentioned this earlier to Matt when they did their interview. Some interesting statistics out of there. One was the rise in business email compromise.
Yeah.
What do you do around business email compromise? Can you protect against some of that? I'm just curious because it seems to be a trending piece in the email security side. And how does Pixelm potentially help on a business email compromise?
Well, we're really about that prevention step. So, the step before somebody gets their email compromised, we will pick up that fake Microsoft Outlook login page there at point of click.
Okay.
So we'll really try and nip that in the bud. I think down the line on our roadmap, we're also thinking about ways to have language models and ways understanding how you communicate with your colleagues. So if somebody's communicating with you in a way that looks abnormal, we'll be able to stop that and prevent that too, in case they're trying to get you to, wire money to some account.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's the biggest risk, right?
Right.
And there's a consumer aspect to this too, because I think a lot of consumers who fall prey to this, they may not be savvy to some of this stuff, right?
That's right.
So obviously you've got the free plugin. Is there a consumer play here? Or are you really still just going to target the enterprise, because that's where a lot of this, in a B2B market, we know where the money is. I'm just curious about the consumer play, because I could see a consumer use case for this as well.
Oh, 100%. We love users. We love stopping phishing attacks at point of click. So the more users we have, the more phishing attacks that we're able to stop. We want to be on 50 million devices in 3 to 5 years. We want to be stopping thousands of unique phishing attacks per month. So to the extent that consumers can help us get there,
right.
We love consumers. That's why we have a free version on the website.
Right. Exactly right. Chris, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Matt, thank you so much for having me.
If anybody wants to learn more or find the free download, please go to securityweekly.com/Pixem, PIXM. Stay tuned. We have a couple more interviews left today.
Good afternoon, everyone, or close to afternoon. I'm Bill Brenner, VP of Content Strategy here at Security Weekly and Cyber Risk Alliance, and I am delighted to be here with Mehul Revankar, VP of Product Management at Qualys, and we are going to talk about an important announcement that you had yesterday. First, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
How's the week going so far for you?
It started hectic. It's now starting to slow down, so it's good. It's good now.
Yeah, a lot of traffic, busy. Everybody's making up for lost time.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see people in person finally. So
yeah,
it's,
for sure.
It's good, exciting.
So let's get right into it. Yesterday you had an announcement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
So yesterday we had our biggest major, the major significant update to our flagship product, VMDR 2.0 with TrueRisk. About 2 years ago, around the same time at RSA, we launched our first version of VMDR 1.0, and so we took the lessons from our initial launch and included that in 2.0. So let me step back a little.
Mm-hmm.
So when we launched VMDR 1.0 about 2 years ago, the key thing we were trying to drive was tool consolidation. So when we looked at the market, we've been in vulnerability management for over 20 years. We've been building world-class vulnerability management products. And what we saw then was that, customers had many tools, but fewer solutions. So they had one solution for asset management, one solution for vulnerability assessment and detection, a different solution for prioritization, a different solution for remediation and response. So we consolidated, and these tools didn't necessarily talk to each other. So we consolidated all of that into an all-in-one solution to discover, prioritize, and remediate vulnerabilities at scale. And that helped us change the game on vulnerability management in terms of customers could ask questions to their infrastructure, like how many assets do I have that doesn't have an EDR agent, within 2 seconds, scan every 4 hours. It's it's kind of things that were not standard in vulnerability management, which are standard now. Patch vulnerabilities faster than ever before, almost 60% faster, and so on. And that was a great release. But as we came out of our first release, we started to look at the market landscape and what our customers were telling us. And the thing that we realized was, or it was very evident to us, is customers were more focused on risk and less about vulnerabilities. Every question that we were getting asked was, how do I manage risk? How do I reduce risk? What do I do to close the gap between IT and security? How can I automate things? And so on and so forth.
And there's a lot of pining for automating vulnerability management.
Correct.
So more time can be spent dealing on the larger risk equation.
Correct.
So let's talk about that, because I've followed Qualys for a long time, and going back 15 years ago when I was writing about Qualys as a journalist, in the context of here's the latest vulnerability, here's advice from Qualys, but the challenge has always been prioritizing vulnerabilities,
Correct.
which one is most important to fix based on your own environment.
Correct.
So, obviously the wish has been to make it less of a hand crank function, more automation. So talk about how VMDR 2.0,
2.0 with TrueRisk.
so talk about how 2.0 really enhances that.
Yeah. So, one thing that we saw was that the exploitation, the speed of exploitation was really high. Like, I don't know how many of you have gone through the Log4Shell hell in December 10th, 11th, and 12th, right?
Yep.
Those 48 hours, like mass exploitation across the board and so on. And then we've seen trends like proxy logon, and where the exploitation is like within few days, right? So it is very important to prioritize based on risk. So we took a very holistic approach to risk. And risk, the concept of risk is very easy to understand, but to implement is very difficult. Like, it's very multifaceted. So for example, you could have a vulnerability on an asset that is internal, and a critical vulnerability, but the risk is low. But the same on the external facing asset, it's actually it's a big deal, right? Or you could have a vulnerability on a system, but then you've implemented some compensating controls so that the risk of exploitation is really low. Like, for example, in Log4Shell, if you remove the JNDI class file, then there is, even if you didn't update the software, it's still good. No one is going to be able to exploit the software, right? Same thing goes with the criticality of the asset. Like, what value does it provide? Is it like does it serve an important function in the organization, or is it just a test? So all these things have to be taken into account as part of your risk equation. So what we did is we introduced a few key risk scores into the platform. One was the asset risk score, which is very transparent transparent risk score, which assesses the true risk of the asset for your organization. So it takes into account, for example, the asset criticality automatically. One of our fundamental beliefs is, if organizations have to manually set the criticality, we have lost the game already. If you have like 100 systems, that's probably fine. But if you're dealing with 10, 100,000 or millions of assets, that's just not feasible, right? So we integrated with CMDBs to automatically bring in the business criticality for asset criticality, right? And that automatically drives the asset risk score. We also take into account the vulnerabilities, not just the vulnerabilities, but the misconfigurations we found on it, or the location of the asset. And Qualys has almost more than 20 applications on the platform, and as more modules come online, each module contributes its risk score. For example, we have an EDR solution, and if a malware event is found and their asset has no vulnerabilities or misconfigurations, that will still be a high risk asset for your organization, because we saw a malware on your asset. So that was the first key risk we introduced into the platform. And the second thing we did was we took the same approach for vulnerabilities, where historically vulnerabilities have been prioritized based on CVSS, which is for a lack of a better algorithm, is a good thing to prioritize, but it always represented the technical severity of the vulnerability, not the risk it poses to your organization, right? So we assemble one of the most comprehensive exploit and threat intelligence that is out there to bring in more threat context for the vulnerability. What is the exploit code maturity for this vulnerability? Is it weaponized? Can somebody just take it and run it and exploit it in compromised systems, or it just proof of concept? Are there malwares or threat actors exploiting this vulnerability? If so, which ones are exploiting this vulnerability? And we did in-depth analysis. Like, we looked at all the 180. The universe of vulnerabilities is close to around 185,000 vulnerabilities, and we looked at all the threat intelligence, exploit intelligence we have. What we found out was there are close to about 4,000 vulnerabilities that have exploit code weaponized, but there are like 700 to 300 vulnerabilities that of those, only 700 to 300 vulnerabilities are getting exploited by malware or threat actors. So those are, posing the high risk. And there is an even smaller number, which is like, the Hall of Fame vulnerabilities, which get their own name, like Log4Shell, WannaCry, like Heartbleed, right?
Shell
shock, dirty cow, like, holy cow. I forget what it is, but right, you should get the point, right? So, and if these things,
I'm having 2014 flashbacks now.
and if these things show up in infrastructure, these are like a sure shot way to show up on the first page of Washington Post or New York Times. Like if you get breached by these well-known vulnerabilities. So having that context, and not just that, but like if vulnerabilities are getting exploited in the wild right now, right? So we provided that context to prioritize the vulnerabilities, and then something that we did uniquely was to correlate that with the asset intelligence we have, in terms of like if you had a mitigation control or a compensating control on the system for that vulnerability, we lowered the risk score for you, so that you can focus on the real high priority items in your infrastructure. So the things that you've already taken care of, deeper. We're not saying don't do them, but what you're saying is, you have a mountain of vulnerabilities to climb, right? But here's the real vulnerabilities you need to focus on, and then use those scores to build, compare the risk of a group of assets. How is my New York office doing versus my London office? How is my finance team doing versus my marketing team? So you can kind of gamify the system so that the teams and the people who are responsible for those assets actually have a visual understanding of where the risk is and how they are doing compared to the rest of the organization, right? So they can actually, and no one wants to be at the top of the leaderboard for high risk.
Yeah.
So
a couple questions. I'll start with, one of the things I'm always thinking of when a product update happens, especially one as big as this. I'm always thinking, I go into buyer's guide mode, because we produce a lot of those. If you are a prospective Qualys customer and you're looking at this update and you're thinking about diving in and making the purchase, talk about the homework potential clients need to be doing before they come to you that will help them truly optimize this in a way that's going to be the best fit for their environment.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, to quantify cyber risk and measure cyber risk. And then obviously, once you're able to do it, how are you tracking the risk reduction? One of the key things we did with our release is also close the gap between IT and security. So one of the fundamental beliefs we have is for vulnerability management to be done well, three key aspects have to come and converge: people, technology, and processes. So no matter how many improvements we make to the algorithm or the risk line, if the people and processes are not taken care of, the vulnerability management program will fail. So we're also making sure that there are silos between IT and security are broken down. So we introduced, as part of this solution, integrations with or applications on the ServiceNow store, ServiceNow ITSM. So you can directly import Qualys findings into ServiceNow, create tickets, assign it to the right people, close it out, and the IT teams can track their reporting and dashboards directly from ServiceNow. So they don't have to log into Qualys. They can track their SLAs directly. So that helps collaboratively work collaboratively and actually reduce the risk across the infrastructure. No more manual spreadsheets, no more passing along PDF reports, and things falling through the cracks. And the second thing we did is also empower the security and IT teams to do more. So with the rise in vulnerabilities, the number of people required to fix these things are not rising at the same rate. Right, so you're expected to do more with less. Right, the only way to do that is with more automation. So we're also introducing no-code workflows. We are introducing templates in our platform where you can quickly select our pre-packaged templates. Like for example, an asset, it comes up in the cloud and has a high risk. Quarantine that asset. Apply some security groups on it without having to write scripts and do it, because it's a completely integrated solution. Like if, for example, and this happens more on the cloud, where assets come online, they consume a Qualys license, and then they go offline in 2 hours, like ephemeral assets. Like, ideally, you want to delete that asset as soon as it's gone, but they stay in the platform because nobody actually executed the rule to delete that asset. It costs money, and we tell our customers you should implement purge rules and whatnot. You can automate this process. So event comes in from Amazon or AWS or Azure. Hey, I'm just terminated. Run this automation to clean up the account. So some things like that. So all of that helps our organizations. Get and all of this is included with the VMDR solution. So they get risk-based vulnerability management, automation with our integration with ITSM, and then the no-code workflows to empower the security teams and IT teams to do more. So that's the real value with the product. And the last thing we did was, we amassed the most comprehensive exploit and threat intelligence as the product, so that even if we don't have coverage for a vulnerability, we still have intelligence for that vulnerability. So they can ask questions to Qualys. What do you know about a CVE? Like, so many situations where CISO comes in, hey, what do you know about the CVE? Right? So we can pinpoint. This was the wild exploitation was seen on June 5th. These are the malware families exploiting it. These are the threat actors that are exploiting it, and the exploit code is weaponized. Like, all of that is all the 180,000 vulnerabilities that we have. So a lot of value is packed into VMDR so that customers can do vulnerability management really well.
Excellent. So I'm getting the signal. We're out of time. I feel like we could talk about this for another hour or more.
I mean, if you have to talk about risk, you can talk for a month.
But I was just going to mention, reminding folks to go visit the Qualys booth. Are you in north, south?
So,
it's so much
I would
bigger
recommend going to our website, because that has all the collateral. Qualys.com TrueRisk, TRURISK without the E. Our marketing was very hell-bent on removing the E from TrueRisk, so that's fine. So Qualys.com/TrueRisk, everything that we talked about, all the product collateral, the videos, the data sheets, it's all there, and they can learn more about the solution.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It's been great.
Same here. Thank you.